And so I think there's also parallels there to that sort of like how love transforms you. And if you're never an easy road sort of thing.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Like the Twilight series, we really only have the first 2 books or movies, whichever media you're consuming, to have the buildup of their relationship, and the rest of it is just their relationship, which is, then the conflict becomes why. Hello and welcome. My name is Andrea, and I am back to host my dream unhinged episode of Our Flag Means Fanfiction, the Our Flag Means Death Twilight crossover. 2 Edwards. Is this anything? Can I make something come out of this? Who knows? But I'm very excited that I got some captives here to do this with me that agreed to go along on this unhinged journey. So on the pod this week, we have Belle here to be a Twilight hater. Welcome, Belle.
Hello.
Good to see you again. And then I have a new friend that I conned into doing this, that I said, if you don't do this, we won't be friends anymore. Welcome to my friend Leopoldo. Leo, it's great to have you be on a podcast. First time ever.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever been on a podcast.
And I also bullied you into watching the show.
You did? Well, yeah. Yeah. I was just be like, I don't know. I took a while, but I was like, no, yeah, you did. I got a lot of posts and Twitter, not posts, text from you.
Yes, I got a lot of texts harassing you. Did you watch an episode? What did you think? But yes, I'm Andrea. Welcome again. And we are going to kick things off with our first question, as we always do, starting with Belle. What is the most gay pirate thing that happened to you this week?
Oh, excellent. Well, again, I'm going to go back further than this week because I have a lot of tales to tell from when I went to theater. And I will talk this time about a needle drop, an unintended needle drop that was of David Jenkins level. So another one of my favorite movies in the world is Moana. I'm a Disney person. I'm definitely a Disney girly. And when Frozen came out, I actually thought I'd maybe gotten too old for Disney because I liked it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. And then Moana came out and I thought, no, I'm still there. I'm not old yet. I'm not that old yet because I loved it immediately. So as I was driving from the east side of North Ireland to the west, heading towards the beaches that we were talking about towards Mercer Bay, I just thought this is the time for the Moana soundtrack. So I started playing it from the beginning because I love every single song.
We did the same thing while we were driving.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody doesn't know, Moana actually means ocean, like sea. That's what
I learned that while I was there.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. So we're driving, and we're getting to the sort of windy, hilly bit. And the new song comes on. We turn a corner and they go, Moana. And we get that first big whoosh of the ocean from the mountains look. Almost drove off the road. It was absolutely fantastic. Couldn't have timed it if I've tried. It was fabulous.
That's a beautiful story. Did you like Moana 2?
I loved that David Fonda was in it.
Commercial. I liked Moana 2. I thought it was good.
It was good. It didn't live up to the first one. The first one, I walked out singing every single song. And the second one was very cute. I had a little bit of an issue.
Bat lady?
Yeah. I had a little bit of an issue with the way that they treated fandom and they kind of made fun of it. Me being a crazy fan, I was like, don't make fun of us. We love you. Why would you do this? But other than that, no, it's beautiful. The story was beautiful. Of course, the animation was gorgeous. All of it was. It just didn't have me singing for the next week and a half.
Well, there was no Lin-Manuel Miranda.
This is very true. And
exactly. That little rat man makes good music. So
exactly. So it's good stuff.
Okay, Leo. First time ever asking, what is the most gay pirate thing that happened to you this week?
Yeah, I had a very fancy pastry the other day it was like, what did they say? The meal crepe cake? It was like, came from like some place in New York, I guess, but now they're in Sacramento. And it's like a crepe, some kind of filling, a filling, and it was very good. And the top is like creme brulee. Ooh. And then I also had fresh bread from the farmer's market. I don't really know if any of this like really qualifies as gay.
It's very steamed.
Yeah, it's 100% gay pirate. That pastry sounds like something that is way too much, which is perfection.
It was really great. I really liked it.
That's great. I'm very happy for you, and I know how much pastries affect you and affect your life.
It's really hard to find them where I'm at, and it's so good to find like a good one.
And for me, my most gay pirate thing happened yesterday. Speaking of being a Disney adult, Belle, I was at Disneyland yesterday, saved the best ride for last, which was Pirates of the Caribbean, although, you know, whatever, that franchise is fine, who cares? But there are pirates, and that's the most important part.
Yes.
And they have some of the paintings on the walls of some of the pirates we know from the show. And I go like once a year because I live in Southern California and it's right there. And I have friends that are also Disney adults that I get like swept up into their mania. So I do go like once a year. And every time I go on Pirates, I add a little bit more lore to the original character I've created that someday I'll write down in fan fiction. I forgot what I named him. It was something Bonaparte because he was French.
Yeah.
And because, you know, the story is like set in the beginning and like kind of like New Orleans. So every time I ride that ride, a little bit more gets added to my OC, and someday I'll actually write him down. We'll see. But that was my gay pirate thing at Disneyland. But with that, let's get into the insanity. That is my other favorite thing. Okay, so I want to do this episode, and I had pitched this a while ago, because Twilight is it is my other favorite thing in the world, both ironically and unironically. At first, I was like, well, you know, there's Edwards, so that's something. But, you know, actually thinking about it, I do think there are a lot of parallels. Both of the stories, you know, approach the concept of soulmates and fates in different ways. And they both have inspired a ton of fanfic. So, you know, they definitely have that in common. And I will preface by saying I know that Twilight is very problematic. I'm very aware of that in my love. I try to not give any money directly to Stephenie Meyer, Mormon queen that she is. Everything I have Twilight tends to be secondhand or a gift from somebody else. I don't necessarily need to put more money in her pockets for writing this insane story, but I can't help it. I love it, and I won't be ashamed. And I will not feel bad about it. So I'm going to start with first a general Twilight question, starting with you, Belle. Team Edward or Team Jacob, and why?
That's really funny. So the first time that I read it, I was definitely Team Edward. Yeah. But I was definitely torn. And of course, me being who I am, I was like, why can't this be a threesome? Like, why can't this be a throuple? Exactly. Like, what in the world? And I was like, oh yeah, because she's a Mormon and she couldn't see that happening. But I was like, this is perfect. You have a vampire and a werewolf. Like, this is perfection.
And then the werewolf ends up being attracted to the vampire sperm.
Yeah.
You took the good idea and probably the worst version of what could have happened.
Exactly. This had the makings of a great story. You ruined it.
Yeah.
Many fan fictions. I've never read my fan fiction, but I'm sure that it would not be hard to find one.
So I assume you haven't read 50 Shades of Grey.
Which is a Twilight
fiction. I haven't.
Because it is the Twilight fiction.
The preeminent.
They made so much money from that fan.
They did indeed.
Read 50 Shades of Grey, and I haven't seen the movies. I think they've been like on my list kind of as like one day when I've got like nothing else to watch.
I have nothing else to do.
Like
but that hasn't hit me yet, but it's like vaguely on the list of like, one day, you know, why not?
Yeah, if you're bored enough. Yeah. If your options are only that or watching paint dry, consider it. Consider it. Yeah. And of course, I do think 50 Shades of Grey is absolutely awful and toxic and just awful. Just ugh. Yeah. So compared to that, Twilight is actually much better.
Right.
I'll give you that.
But so to some, you are not Team Edward or Team Jacob. You're Team EJ Bella, Team Threesome, which again, a parallel to you being steady hands. So it all comes together.
It all comes together.
You're always nothing is not consistent.
Does it show that I'm poly? I'm always like, the option's always more people.
You get more people in the mix. Why not?
Okay, so Leo, for you, Team Edward or Team Jacob, and why?
I think when I remember reading the books for the first time in high school and being like, and I only read them because I'd gotten into an argument with a friend over like a random character that I didn't know anything about. And they're like, I forgot what started the conversation, but they're like, well, Stephanie Myers isn't going to put a witch in the books. And I was like, why wouldn't she? She's already put all these other things. Like, why would that stop it? And she's like, no, that would be dumb. That wouldn't fit. And I'm like, that literally makes no sense to me. I'm reading these books now because there has to be some explanation as to like why it was, because it wasn't just her at the table. It was like a bunch of them that had been reading it. And I was like, I think I brought it up.
So you succumbed to peer pressure.
Well, I think it was more just me wanting to read and being like, why are you thinking there's any kind of like strict world
building
rules? Yeah. So you're reading out of spite. I love that so much.
And I don't think I hated it on first read. I'm like, I haven't read it since high school. I definitely vaguely remember going over the Jacob parts and being like, she clearly doesn't like you. She really, really likes Edward.
Yeah, and there were moments there when Jacob went into very, am I nice guy territory? Oh my.
Yeah, I remember, I'm like, I don't know if I can support you. I think you need some space.
Yes, you need help.
And so I think I was Team Edward for that. Like being like, oh, I think it's always been Edward. I don't know how you actually got involved. You feel very much like an afterthought.
Yeah, poor Jacob. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I am also, well, I don't know if I can say also, because Leo, you're Team Edward on accident, and Belle, you're Team everybody. But me, I was quite actively Team Edward. Again, with me being consistent, right? As I'm the gentle beardy, like always and forever. So I guess maybe I'm not very creative. And so when someone tells me that's who they should love, I'm like, exactly. Yep. I don't need to think any more about it. But to Leo's point, you know, the way Stephanie writes it, yeah, like Jacob really is not actually a competitor for Bella's heart. Like it is always going to be Edward. And again, what this says about me, I should talk to my therapist about. I never found Edward's behavior to be creepy or controlling. I always saw him as being very protective, but maybe I should talk about that.
I mean, I think that also depends like at what age and like the context of that initial reading where it's like,
I was in college. I was old.
Well, I mean, but again, even in college, like, I mean, I think people read those books. Like, I mean, I know I read it in high school and I think I saw Jacob as like, okay, it wasn't out of a sense of like nice guy behavior as much as like, oh no, this book is clearly saying like, you're not even a character. Like she doesn't care about you. And then when I was reading the Edward stuff, I thought it was more, I mean, I would like try and think of myself in Bella's situation because it was very easy to project onto her.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, I don't know if I'd want someone watching me while I sleep, but apparently he's really hot. So
no, you know what? Context that does matter because the first time I read these, I actually bought them and I was just starting to be in a relationship. And like, so I was in the very first, like, hard ties, happy. And I was like, and her name is Bella and my name is Belle and they're in love forever. And oh my goodness, I had very much blinders on.
Yeah.
And then later on, I went back to reread it, which I do a lot. I read books over and over again. And without those glasses on, I just kind of went, what? All these things started coming up. So it context definitely matters for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point, Belle, when I read it in college, I was not a teenager, but I was like 22. I was still an idiot, you know? And I, even though I'm obviously much, much older now and I see the world differently, I guess I still kind of fall back into that mindset of when I read it as a very young person and thinking like, yeah, I would love to feel protected in that way, you know, from somebody.
Oh no, I was just going to say also to your point, it's interesting you brought that up about like wanting to feel protected or falling back to your initial reading of it, because I do think that happens a lot for not only books, but like the series of movies we watch. I know that we've talked about shows, Andrea, that we like that we're just like, oh, this is not a good show. But because we watched it at initial start, like at some point in our lives, where we read something at certain points of our lives, it's easy to really fall back into those feelings. And I think that's why, particularly for shows like Our Flag or whatever else that do have really strong fandoms, it's because something resonated on that first watch. Yeah. And that's something that you can revisit because it's like almost a little bit of like, not saying that you can't or that you wouldn't get more out of like additional viewings or other reads or whatever, because certainly I think that's true. But I think it's very easy to fall back into that initial mindset of like, oh, this is how I felt or this was happening or whatever. And so you're kind of falling back into whatever that was.
Yeah.
I think makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I'm glad we all agree that it's great literature and really well written. It's really well written.
She should have won the Nobel Prize.
She should have won a Pulitzer at least.
They should have added it to the back end of the Bible. Just
really?
Yeah. I mean, it's right there. It's quite.
There's still time. There's no reason they can't.
That's right. That's
true.
Right.
We need Stephanie's version of the Bible. Like there's like Gideon's Bible. We need Stephanie's Bible, which is Twilight.
We get it from different perspectives.
All right. So the other thing, obviously, is again we have our Edward and Edward two Edwards. What do they have in common? Where are they different? What I do think is interesting is that both Edwards do have this feeling of being like unworthy of their partner, but because Stephanie, again, Mormon queen that she is, bless her, is not a great writer necessarily always, Edward Cullen often comes off as whiny, especially, I don't know if either of you read Midnight Sun, because that came out way, way later.
That's the one from his perspective.
Yeah, so I read Midnight Sun, and it's huge. It's like a tome, and you spend the entire time in his head. It was interesting. I'll give her that. I mean, it was interesting to see Twilight from his perspective, but it was like, wow, like you really need to talk to somebody. Like you are not well. But I feel like our Ed, Ed Teach is so well written that it feels extremely relatable in a way that Edward Cullen does not, because it's just a more fleshed out character. I don't know. Thoughts?
I think I'd agree. But I also wanted to ask a clarifying question. Did she ever write, am I imagining this, like a gender swap version?
Yeah, she did. She did write a gender swap version called Life and Death with, I'm forgetting the names. Bo is Bella, Bo Swan, and, what's the Edward? I don't remember what Edward's name is. I've actually never read Life and Death. Fan that I am, I somehow have never read Life and Death. But yes, that is a version that exists.
Interesting. I am so curious now. I may have to go see if I can find that somewhere where
it's not a secret. You'll find it.
Yeah, just maybe go to the library or something, because I'm interested to see how that reads. But going back to Edwards, I think you're correct. They both have very deep issues. They've done things in the past they're not happy with. They have lots of regrets. They feel like the person they're in love with is golden and perfect and bigger than themselves. But yes, you're right. That's when writing comes in. And of course, we have incredible acting, incredible directing. Like we got more life to the show. But even the fanfics, people tend to write Edward better.
It's very interesting.
People writing for free are doing a much better job than Stephanie did with Edward. And because Edward does write, he comes off as moody and whiny, and just kind of you just roll your eyes at him a lot, I think. Whereas with Edward, you just want to hold him forever, and
yeah, and give him snacks.
Yes, exactly.
And no hate to Arpats. I think Arpats is an excellent actor. I think Kristen Stewart is an excellent actor. I think you can only do so much with source material, right? Like you can be the best actor in the world. So source material is lacking, then your performance will be lacking. Yeah, I mean, even in, because we're also talking too about like a visual media and then written media as far as canon. But even taking the books out of it and looking just at what we see visually from the movies. Yeah, Edward comes off, and maybe also too, it's different ages of the characters. I mean, like, yes, Edward's 127 or whatever, or 95 or I forgot. But he's still a teenager, right? He's still 17. He's forever 17. And he's forever stuck in that 17-year-old mindset. Whereas our Ed is, an adult with life experience who's lived a lot and achieved many things in his lifetime and not gone to high school over and over again for some reason.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the reason why Edward's more relatable to me, because there's a part of me that goes, Edward, there's no excuse. You should know better by now. I know you act like you're 17, but you're 100. So you definitely should be above this. And he's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think I do agree with both of what you've already said. And something that I thought of, and I can't remember which of you said it, obviously you both have said that he's like moody and whiny and all these other things. And I'm not saying our flag's character is this, to be fair. I think I'm just remembering Edward's like initial reaction to when him and Bella were like separated, and then he like really goes off the deep end. He's like, I'm gonna go get killed by these
Volturi. Yeah. Well, first he went to Brazil for like 9 months and then was like,
oh yeah. And then, but I'm really thinking also of like when Edward and Blackbeard broke up, and like
Edward and Blackbeard?
No, who was it? Ed and Steed broke up. And
not a real fan.
I'm really bad at names. I have like the names like listed off to the side so I can click to the IMDb page and be like, okay, these are the characters I remember. But when Edward and Steed broke up, and Steed like really goes to like a dark place, and that
Ed goes to the dark place. Well, Steed does too, but yeah.
No, Steed also does too. Like he like beats up all the pirates and like ditches them on the island and all that.
No, that's Ed.
Ed. Oh my God.
I swear you watched the show because we talked about it.
I have watched this show. I'm just really bad with character names, I promise. But Ed does it. And so I guess then going back then, I want to compare Ed and Ed again, like you said, but it's like they go to that similar places of their reaction to that loss of love. And there's
you went into the names, but you made a good point. They both go off the deep end when they are facing lost love.
What was interesting too in comparison between the characters is that Steed is but Ed is trying to meet Steed, not like giving up the pirateness of it, but becoming a little less like violent or bloody or all these other things. And Edward's obviously his whole thing is like, I can't drink blood from a person. I have to fight back. And obviously they're different impulses, and one's like very funny and the other's like a little bit more complicated.
You actually make a very good point, because they're both basically trying to end their lives, just in different way. Actually in a very similar way. They're saying, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to push somebody else into doing it for me. So you're absolutely right. It's actually very similar reactions.
Yeah. What's interesting, I think what's different is that Edward makes the conscious choice to leave Bella because he's trying to protect her from himself. And we do see Ed do that in Man on Fire at the end of season 2 before he comes back. He's like, here's the news, I'm leaving. But that's a little bit of self-protection as well. But when we see our Ed go off the deep end and become the Kraken and all that, that's because Steed leaves him. So there is, again, I think Edward Cullen a bit whiny because, like, listen, you made your choices, rightly or wrongly. You chose to leave Bella, and now you're gonna make everybody else's problem. You're gonna go whine in Brazil for 9 months and then go to Italy and try and get killed. Like, you made the choice. You're so annoying.
Yes, and it's that I know better than you do thing. Like, no matter what you're telling me and you're saying to me specifically, which I'll give our Ed, because they keep like talking around it. So it's not like Steed had told him, hey, I love you and I need you to stay with me. They're just both kind of skirting around it. Whereas Edward tells Bella, he knows that Bella needs him and wants him to stay. And he's like, nope, I know better than you do. I'm off. And then, becomes a whiny bitch.
But it is also interesting, like in the topic of love and their reactions to love, how much more of that love is sort of explored in Our Flag versus Twilight, where it's very not dynamic. I mean, they have the second book where they're both like wildly depressed about everything. But like for most of like the Twilight series, they're together and it's like this dynamic where Edward's like, oh no, I'm not going to make you a vampire. And Bella's like, that is literally all I want to do.
And I want a bone real bad.
Yeah, those two things.
Would you please get in some?
And you will not do either of those things for me.
Yeah.
And I never really saw that between Ed and Steed. Like, obviously that it felt a little bit more organic love where they both, I mean, obviously the first season was a little bit more of a slow burn to like get to that component. But it's like, even within the second season, like, I mean, it was very much exploring that kind of like who they are in relation to that love and who they are in relation to each other. And now who are they becoming, and are they okay with the person they're becoming, or are they going to push back against that? And I mean, I guess in some level you could probably argue that there probably is a reading. I just don't care to dive that back deep into Twilight, where it's like, oh, Edward is afraid of who he's becoming, like with this intense love. Yeah. It's like Bella's like, no, I really just want to be an immortal vampire to have sex with you, and I don't know why you do that for me. And so I think there's also parallels there to that sort of like how love transforms you. And if you're never an easy road sort of thing.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Like the Twilight series, we really only have the first 2 books or movies, whichever media you're consuming, to have the buildup of their relationship, and the rest of it is just their relationship, which is, then the conflict becomes, why won't you bone me? I want you to bone me. Where in Our Flag, we spend the entire time seeing their relationship grow and change and shift. Even in our meager 18 episodes we were given, we're able to see so much of the relationship develop. It's a good point.
Storytelling versus fast storytelling, because really, if you can do a better job of exploring a relationship with 9 hours of television than you can over 600 pages of a book
and 5 movies
and 5 movies, then there's something wrong there.
Something has gone wrong. But
that's their spin-offs, all the other books that she read.
Yes, he keeps going. Well, good for her, I guess. But that actually segues very nicely into my next question, which is, how do you think each story approaches the concept of falling in love and the idea of soulmates? Because in Twilight, it's very explicitly stated, like Bella and Edward are soulmates. They are destined to be together. Bella doesn't feel like she fits in until she becomes a vampire. Then she becomes like, she feels herself when she always felt sort of, a quote from the book, out of step in the human world. And then, Edward, I guess, because again, in a Mormon view, vampires mate for life like penguins, and they all have a destined person, which is sure.
As do werewolves, they find one, even if that happens to be a newborn child,
right?
And that's just their soulmate forever.
Yeah. I
will always remember in the book and in the movie, they take great pains to really be like, oh, but it's not what you're thinking. It's like, well, then maybe you could have phrased it differently.
He's just going to take care of her until she's old enough for them to bone.
And that's not weird.
It's not weird at all. It's not grooming.
That is like, it was wild to me when I read it. It was wild to me when I watched it. It's like, oh, maybe they'll do something different this time. They literally could do a million other things. They could do a million other things besides like doing that.
Yeah.
A million ways of doing it.
She has no choice. Then she tries to make it a choice by being like, oh, but whatever her name is, because it's a very weird name that I can't even pronounce, loves him so much. Look how she pets Jacob. I'm like, oh, yes. That obviously means that she too is choosing him as a soulmate at age week and a half. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have a real strong idea of what a soulmate is in the Twilight universe, and it is powerful, and apparently you can't deny it, regardless of how creepy and bad it is. It's coming for you, almost like a stalker in the night. Like, it's gonna get you.
It's coming.
You can't avoid it. And luckily for Edward and Bella, neither one of them, well, I guess you could argue that maybe Edward's a pedo because he's 100 years old and she's 17. But, that's fine.
So many other romanticy, and not that I've read any of the newer ones that have come out, but they all do that, don't they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see it, in everything. If you look at most couples on television and on the screen today, it's gotten a little better. Every once in a while, you'll see people and you look up the ages of the actors and you go, they're 3 years apart, 2 years apart. But most of the time, it's like, he's 82 and she is 27. That absolutely makes sense for everybody involved.
The amount of times that two actors have played like father and daughter and later played a couple is not insignificant. And that's horrifying to me as a person in my soul.
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I do think in comparison to the way Ed and Steve's relationship is depicted, they are portrayed as like two weirdos who kind of find each other based on their shared feelings about their place in the world and, things they relate to from their childhood, etc. But they're not really soulmates, I don't think, or it's not depicted in the same way. It's not like this unavoidable, you were destined to be together. And, once you are together, like that means the world has aligned. I like that it doesn't approach it the same way. It sort of hints at it, but it's not this explicit, terrifying, it's coming to get you and you can't get away from it concept.
I agree. And it has, so that's also another thing that I think has shifted in my brain over the years when I was young and read Twilight in the first read. The idea that you're destined for somebody, that somebody is coming for you eventually, that you won't be alone because there is somebody out there is appealing.
Right.
And then as I got older, I realized that choice is a much stronger thing. People that choose to love somebody, whether it's a partner, a child, maybe a child that's not theirs, a child that is theirs. Like just, that when you make a choice, it's a lot stronger than just we were meant for it or we were destined or it's so to me. So I think also it'd be interesting. I wonder how 22-year-old me would have reacted to Our Flag Means Death as opposed to me that is very close to their ages, So, but then again, I was also attracted to 40-year-olds when I was 17. So I think I would have loved it anyway, just in a different way. But yeah, no, absolutely. That difference in the way that love is portrayed. Now, that being said, in fan fiction for Our Flag Means Death, you get a lot of soulmate stories, alpha omega stories where they just, the moment they smell each other, they're on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Don't worry, we're going to get to the Omegaverse.
I saw that. I was so excited when I saw that. I was like, oh, juicy.
I don't think we ever see them go on a date even. There's that one scene where he's running
the
around.
mushroom ravioli scene, very crucial.
Oh, I don't remember. Okay. Well, obviously then there was.
But that's before they're together. That's before she even knows he's a vampire. So I don't know if that counts.
Maybe it does. Who knows? I should have revisited Twilight before this.
If I should have marathoned it, like I do at least once a quarter, like a very normal, sane person does. But I really like what you said, Belle, about choice, and that really ultimately what makes the stories very different. And it's God, I'm so glad you said that, because I couldn't quite put my finger on this whole time, like what it was that while the stories were hitting a lot of the same beats, honestly, they feel so different to me. And because Our Flag is about choice, Ed and Steed choose each other over and over again. Even in the short little bit of time we have with them, we see them choose each other over and over again. Where in Twilight, that element of choice is completely removed. And so it takes it out of your hands, which is appealing to a younger audience, as you were saying, but doesn't really make sense once you're an adult.
Even the families in Twilight, short of a few little maybe things here and there, they're all like, oh, of course they're meant to be together forever. Again, it's just the whole world is just, whereas Ed and Steed have to overcome things and basically prove themselves to each other and to their friends and their families. And like they again, it's more, they're making it work as opposed to it just magically coming together.
Yeah. Which obviously it does by the only thing it can, a baby, which solves all problems.
Yes. And baby galore. Absolutely.
Having a baby will make everything.
A baby that you are told will kill you as soon as you have it. And in fact does. It just happened to have magic to bring her back.
The only way she could have gotten to turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
He was not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. The only way she could get her man to do what she wanted was to have his baby. Wow. There's a lot of messaging here that's not good.
Die and basically die.
Right.
Yeah.
The baby wasn't going to kill her. He wasn't going to turn her.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was bleak. So I'm going to ask everyone a fun question. So Dr. Carlisle Cullen has been alive the longest. He's been a vampire since forever. What do we think he was doing in the year 1717 during the golden age of piracy?
Having gay sex and lots of it.
Thank you, Leo. I'm so glad somebody besides me said that. Because of course he was.
Right. Because he didn't meet his soulmate until much later. I think after Edward. So this has been like in the 1930s. I'm so sad that I know that. Like
he had a threesome with Ed and Steed.
I'll take that. Yeah, I will. Is it fanfic writers assemble?
Oh yeah, someone
give us that Twilight.
This point.
I think as you were saying, Belle, more people the better, right? So in the middle of Steady Hands pops up right there.
Bring him. The Black Sails pirates make lots and lots of guest appearances, and that always makes me happy. Bring on the Collinses.
Yeah, bring on the Collins. I mean, what is Peter Fasinelli doing right now? I think he's just doing Twilight conventions. I haven't seen him anything in a while.
Let's Google Peter.
Let's Google what Fasinelli do these days. I saw him in person once. He's very short. Huh. He was very pretty. Of course, beautiful, very short.
Let me see.
But I love a short king, so I was like,
yeah. I mean, you're talking to a deep canyon person, so yes,
right, yeah, of course, yeah. I once again I forgot who I was talking. All right, Leo, what's Peter Fasinelli working on? Is he available to be in Our Flag season 3?
He did something in 2021, 13 minutes, 2023 On Fire, 2025 Unbreakable Boy.
Okay.
TV less so. He was on like a Magnum PI and he was on.
Yeah, it seems like he could use a little.
Yeah, he's available.
He's available.
So we can have him pop up in season 3 in the middle of an orgy, and he's just also there. Yeah, but this is much before he's still. I'm going to assume still kind of getting around the whole thing of like not having human blood. He's the first vampire to do it, so maybe he bites someone just a little bit, just like a little.
Yeah, just a nip.
A little nip. My answer was way less sexy. I was like, I thought he's at the fancy dress party watching everyone fight over the pyramids, but he was too smart to buy a pyramid. But I think your answers are better.
I like that too.
All right. It's time to talk about the Omegaverse. Belle, please tell me, what did Stephanie do wrong? Because I know there's a lot, and I don't know shit about Omegaverse. I mean, I bow at your feet. What did Stephanie do wrong in her approach to werewolves?
Okay, so interesting. There's a lot of things about that. So the Omegaverse, what the Omegaverse really is an exaggeration and a almost a ridicule of conventional gender norms.
Okay.
You have things like the Omegas, which are supposed to represent women, being thought of as weak and frivolous and have to be protected at all times. And they are a slave to their instincts, so they can't be trusted. They drive Alphas crazy with their wiles and get them to do whatever they want. So it's that idea, right? And it's magnified so largely that it becomes a caricature of itself. Stephanie is writing a story where she truly believes these things. She's not making fun of them. She's not poking holes at the idiocy that is those things. She's saying, of course, Bella has to be protected by a big man that comes. And no matter, she can't make her own decisions. She can't want to have sex. She can't want to know that she wants to live forever, because who wants to live forever? Stupid. So Edward has to be there to guide her, even though he acts like a freaking 17-year-old as well, to guide her. And the fact that he's 90, hey, older men, that's what older men are for, to protect young ladies. And she even has some of that, where Bella really, really wants to have sex with the men that she loves. And it's treated as a, you don't know what you're doing. You are crazy. Let's wait until we get married at the very least. So again, that idea of women having these Omegas having these uncontrollable impulses that they just don't know the consequences to. And that's, So as a whole, they do that. Now, when it comes to werewolves, it is a very similar thing as some of the Omega stories. So the Omega stories don't always have that whole, like, one destined person. Sometimes they do, like, as soon as this
and that is based on scent. Am I correct in this?
Oh, what? I'm sorry?
Is that based on scent?
Yes, it's based on scent. So, which is also similar to the way that Stephanie does it with Edward, where the smells are...
Leo and I were texting each other in preparation for this episode, and I said, I'm pretty sure Omegaverse is just about dick smell. And
that's pretty much it.
I also have a question, because I was talking to Andrea and I said, I read this series of book, which I don't recommend. I don't think they're great. There's something I've read when I was younger and I was like, well, I'm committed to this now. It's called Mercy Thompson series. And I thought that actual series was Omega. Like, I thought that's where it came from, but it's not. The little research I've had. And can you explain just a little bit more? Because I haven't done more aside that, like, where Omegaverse comes from.
Yeah, who made this?
Like, what is it? Like, is it just like, is it one series, or is it just like is it like a genre?
It's almost like a genre. So I know that if I'm going to plug the podcast, the other episodes, if you hadn't seen them, we've actually done 2 episodes from true Omegaverse experts who have, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have read both of them. It's basically something that came out of fandom.
Yes, it did.
It blew from fandom. And in the episode, they even talk about exactly what's the earliest documented Omegaverse situation. But basically, you take any kind of pairing, any kind of situation, to put them in this universe where there are alphas, there are omegas, and there are betas. So betas are like regular people, if you will. They just live their lives. Alphas are like the idea of people's alphas. So usually large, powerful, very hormonal, giant cocks.
Right.
With knots.
Right, because they're werewolves.
Yes. Yeah. Omegas are, like I said, the opposite. They're all those, again, so people, it's really fun because a lot of people play with this, but Omegas are generally supposed to represent the female bit, even though most of them are actually, so in the Omegaverse, whether you're actually female or male doesn't really matter. You can still be an alpha or an Omega.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, they go into heat. They like get extremely wet and like leak over everything, so it makes sex super easy. You don't have to worry about lube. Alpha is going to rut, so if you have those two, then you have sex, like marathonic sex, to the point where people have to feed you, otherwise you'll like pass out and die, because all you want to do is fuck. That's it.
God.
You make nests, use lots of pillows, and like scent them and rub each other's scent glands. And then if you like, you can bite the other person and you become bonded through the bite.
Oh, there's so much. I mean, and I have to say, I've had the Omegaverse episodes downloaded on my phone. I've been like saving them to listen to like as a treat. And I probably should have done that before this, but I'm still saving them as a treat I actually have a long flight coming up. I'll probably listen to it then.
I also want to listen.
Yeah. I'll send you the link, Leo. So make sure that you.
Yeah.
You
I mean, so they can be a lot of fun at penciling. Some of them tend to come off a little bit non-con-ish.
Okay.
because the idea that you're so like your heat makes you insane and you can't consent.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, and you have a lot of different variations. There are some omega verses where the omegas are actually super strong because they're supposed to be the nurturers, the ones that protect their brood. So then they're like super strong. And a lot of the stuff that I like in the omega verse with Ed and Steed is again the one where they subvert expectations. Like you have one of them being an alpha, but they actually do like to get fucked, and everybody's like, "What? You're an alpha? You don't do that." Or the omega, whoever's the omega, can control themselves. Like they feel, they're in heat and they want something but they can rise above it, if you will. Right. So there's a lot of that. But again, so the Omega Vest is very funny. It's shining such a strong length that it becomes a caricature. And then you have Stephanie going, no, this is the way that life is real. This is the way things actually are. Yeah.
And it's really interesting you say that about like, and I did know this, but that like any gender can be any variation of alpha, omega, whatever, because there is one female werewolf, Leah, who talk about a character that Stephanie hates. Wow. She hates Leah. Yeah. She hates Leah. Her only female werewolf. She's so mean to her. And if Stephanie ever wrote another story, not that I necessarily think that she should, but if she did, I would love for her to write, and I also wouldn't trust her to do this actually. So as I'm saying it, never mind. But I would just love for Leah to have a better story. Like, why is Leah, as the only female werewolf, like written off as this literally bitter bitch? Like I feel so sad for her.
No, it's absolutely terrible, because if anybody is not familiar, what basically it says, she has actually made a choice and fallen in love with a person, and they're together with this person, and then they become werewolves, and this person turned out to be destined for somebody else.
Her cousin, I think.
Her cousin, I do believe. And so they get together, and everybody's like, why? But why are you even worried about this? This is crazy. Why are you not so upset?
He printed on her, whatever. Yeah, like, get over it.
Come on. And they all share kind of almost like a hive mind, if you will. Not really, but they can.
Yeah, so they can all hear her thinking about him.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly horrendous.
Forgot about the stupid mind thing, because that's why she leaves with Jacob.
Yeah,
because she's like, I literally cannot
stand to say I'm thinking about Emily anymore. Yeah. They also kill her dad. Her dad is dead.
Oh, like, why? How? I forget how he.
Victoria, the ginger vampire, kills Harry Clearwater.
Oh, it's a lot of people.
I really find her approach to the werewolves, I think out of anything, the most problematic out of all of the elements of her story and all her Mormon values that she intersperses throughout. I do think that's probably the worst of it, because, and I'm sure many folks know this, but if you don't, she picked a real tribe of people in Northern Washington, didn't talk to any of them there, and invented a backstory, which is really gross. That's the Quiet tribe. They are in Forks. I personally donate to the tribe fairly often because I feel bad about Twilight.
So okay then, Stephanie.
Well, and their land is affected a lot by erosion, I guess, in that part of Washington. So, if you're interested in looking them up and helping out, you should, because they're real people that she, for some reason, decided to make a whole backstory for, which is really...
Did she give them any money or anything?
No.
I'm sure they have to deal with tourists all the time coming up.
Yes.
I would be,
Yeah. Hence why I try and buy all my Twilight stuff secondhand. So I'm never giving her any money directly. But yeah, I have a real problem how she depicts werewolves in general, because there's none of the fun stuff that exists in Omegaverse. There's implied, I guess to your point, Belle, like there's like this implied alpha and beta situation where you have Sam and Jacob as like the leaders, and they control, like, if they say something, everyone else has to do it. So like that's there. But then the traditional values, like you said, are very interwoven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But with that, that's another great segue to talk about fanfic and how fanfic, can take a story and take it further. So I have to say, I have actually never sought out Twilight fanfiction. And I think that speaks to, again, as we said earlier, the level of storytelling, because Twilight isn't a good enough story that I want to like seek out more of it from other people. Like I like it for what it is. And it is something that I do hold dear to my heart, rightly or wrongly, but I don't want more of it necessarily. So I have never really delved into the world of of Twilight fan fiction outside of the unavoidable 50 Shades of Grey. Super different from how I feel about Our Flag, where I always want to revisit. I always want to go back. I always want to see more. What I did find in my bit of research that I did, I kind of looked up the most popular Twilight fan fictions. And what's a couple of things that stood out to me. One, the most popular Twilight fan fiction is cross with Harry Potter. And I'm like,
okay.
And I'm like, well, yes, because it's not really good enough on its own to deserve its own fanfic. So like,
there's also crossover actors, so you've got
right, Arpats, of course.
When you said crossover, I was like, who's
in both?
Yeah, he dies as Cedric and comes back as Edward somehow. That's how that works in that universe.
Why not?
Why not? So there is, first of all, the most popular is a crossover with Harry Potter. So the story is not even being told on its own. Second thing is that there's very little like Edward and Bella as the main ship, whereas I think Gentlebeard is still probably the most popular ship that's in fanfic. But everyone who's writing Twilight fanfic is like, fuck them. We don't give a shit about Edward and Bella. Like, they're lame. It's always rewritten to be like, one I saw a lot was Jasper and Harry, as in Harry Potter.
Which one was Jasper?
Okay. The Confederate one. We didn't even talk about him as a Confederate character. We didn't even go there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like Jasper Harry fanfic. Everyone loves Draco, so he's involved in a lot of, situations. I mean, I'm not a Harry Potter person. It's a whatever for me. But yeah, I found that really interesting. The other thing I saw that was a common theme was a lot of original characters and people like writing themselves into the Twilight Harry Potter universe, whatever that's called. The cross, because again, I think the source material is not good enough to stand on its own, so they have to keep like writing themselves into it, making it more interesting. Has anyone else ever found a Twilight fanfic?
I've never read any Twilight fanfiction.
No, the only one that I had the misfortune of reading due to a very bad recommendation by a friend, and I had to reassess my label of that person once they told me, yes, please go read 50 Shades of Grey. And it is opposite to most of the fanfiction that I read in Our Flag Means Death, where they make the universe better, richer, more amazing. It is an absolute disaster. Not only is it terrible, but the meaning, the behind. So they keeps all the bad things of the story.
Like cranks it up to 11.
Cranks it up super high. It's very, it is sold almost like a kink book, but it's the opposite. It's a kink shaming book. Yes. It is basically broken men who came from an abused family is taking it out on people. And that's his kink. And he needs the love of a good woman to make him see the error of his ways. So it's horrendous. It's absolutely terrible. I do,
and it removes all the fun stuff. There's no vampires or werewolves.
Basically, his superpower is money. It's basically what it is. So he basically like bribes her into everything. He's like, I'll buy you a car. I'll pay you for your blank. And that's how he gets her. And it's just, I mean, it's truly gross. And I've only read the first book and then went for the synopsis of the second and third. And I went, I cannot waste my life on this, even to hate it. And same thing for the movie. I was like, to see what they do in the movie. And I was like, nope, just noping right on that one. So yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting that I've read in your outline how the main pairing doesn't get any love. Because there's just not interesting. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do.
There's nowhere to go.
And even the side characters in Our Flag Means Death get a lot of love because you get so many moments where you can look behind the shoulder of the main character and see a secondary character doing something amazing, or one word or one phrase or something that sparks the imagination. Where again, everybody's very 2D in Stephanie's were very 1D even. Like just there's no curiosity there. Like I don't want to know, other than Leah, where I'm like, please help that poor lady out. That poorly. Other than that, I'm like, everybody else is just boring. Like I have no desire to read further about these folk at all.
Yeah. And then I'm glad that you talked more about 50 Shades of Grey, because after hearing that, I'm like, I definitely don't even need to have this on any list. I don't engage with that.
Leo, is your goal not to marry a rich older man to take care of you and then
he dies?
Right. I mean, it has to be significantly
where they're dead.
We gotta fast forward to the death.
I'm not hoping to marry then funeral.
Right.
I go off to live my life.
Yeah. Wedding to rich man and then immediate funeral.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. I don't want to last more than a few days in this. I want it to be over. But it is interesting. We talked a little bit about this, Andrea, the other day when I was going over your outline, how I guess two things immediately jumped out to me, where Twilight is a finished series, whereas Our Flag Means Death wasn't, right? I mean, I, going into the series, knew that it had been canceled. I think if it had just been me in a vacuum, I liked the ending. I think it would have been interesting also to like, I could read that ending as like a very optimistic sort of like, oh, we're going to go off and do more adventures and like a hard cancellation. But because I know it was canceled, then I was like, oh, okay, so there was going to be more. And I wonder if that is what's feeding the fan fiction at that point too. Although I will, not to again echo what Bella already said. I mean, one story is just much better than the other. And so that could be it too, where it's like, if I was going to write fan fiction, I probably would pick Our Flag Means Death just because there's already a richness there that you can add to or build to or turn different perspectives on. Whereas Twilight, the fun aspects of it are more the world than the actual story, where it's like, oh, what power would I have as a vampire? Or, oh, are there other things besides vampires and werewolves? Because what stupid world would only just have those two?
Yeah, you're still stuck on your high school argument. Where's the witch?
I'll never finish that. I'm just like, there's more. I don't believe that there's not. If I was going to write a fan fiction from either scenario, I would probably want to dive a little bit more into the characters of Our Flag Mean Death and creating my own. Not to say that there'd be anything wrong with adding an OC or whatever, because there's fun to always add more things with different perspectives. But with Twilight, I'd be like, well, I could just invent a whole new group of vampires.
Yeah, exactly. You could take that book and that world and make it better. Just make it better.
Yeah. I mean, I hope no one's out here, and no offense if you are, but I hope no one's out here writing like Renesmee and Jacob fanfic of like how their love story continues. No one needs that.
I'm sure that there is.
And Stephanie, you can say left, right, and all around that somehow she's growing at 10 times the normal rate, and that makes it okay. Does not make it okay. That makes it even worse because that's an adult body in the mind of a child.
I mean, all of that thing is just, it's weird. It's a weird situation that they really could have approached a million different ways.
Yeah.
They could have just been like, oh, we're fated to fall in love, but it won't happen. So I'm just going to leave. Right. And then I guess we'll come back at some point. Or they could have done Alice got a vision of the future. I mean, there's like a million different things that could have happened. That didn't have to be like, oh, I'm attracted, but not in the way you think. And it's like Edward having to be like, yeah, I read his mind and I would have killed him if it had been. And it's like, okay, well, none of this, you were also born in like the 1900s. So I don't know if I trust you, Mr.
Yeah, you died of Spanish flu or whatever. Like, how smart are you?
You were one of those people out at parties during the Spanish flu, weren't you, Edward?
Yeah. Why would you do it, Edward? Something else, too, that I think might explain why all of the Twilight fanfic is like different pairings is because they're all queer from what I saw. It's like, Jasper and Harry, Draco and Edward, whatever. Like, there's not a lot of straight, in quotes, you can't see me, but I did finger quotes, straight couples. And I think also that makes a huge difference in how the love story is told, and the richness of the love story is a very extremely heteronormative love story. So heteronormative that they can't even have sex until she's married or they're married, which is, wow, that's fine.
Yeah, just no. Just out there. No, don't do that, please.
The fan fiction community, I guess it would probably vary per like, is it Twilight? Is it Our Flag Means Death? Is it whoever? But it's like, do fanfic romances tend towards queerer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's another thing. It's just that Our Flag already gives us what we needed, right. Which is why it's ruined any and all shows for me. Yeah. Now every time I see anything with queer baiting, which I used to be okay with, now I'm like, go away with you. How dare you? And and you have that. So then you can take it and just build on it so easily without anybody going, wow, this shouldn't be, or you're reading into it. I mean, you still get people like that because we know all about but it's a lot less of that. So it's
and I have an ongoing theory, and again, not my original idea. I think I feel this from a lot of different places, a lot of different sources. But I think fan fiction, for how long it's been around, has always kind of lended towards queer stories more than straight stories. And I feel like that's because as a society, like heteronormativity is so shoved down our throats, and it's harmful. It harms everyone. It even harms the cis straight men, right? We know toxic masculinity is very harmful to them. Fan fiction allows a place to explore love and romance in a safer universe, a safer world, and an easier way to do that is through queer love stories. Like, I have this other book series that I read. I'm not going to go into it right now, but shout out to Pixie Dust in the Parks, my Disney my Disney books that I read, but her characters are always like these really self-aware, like young straight men. And I'm like, that just doesn't, I'm so sorry. That doesn't exist. It's actually not very interesting to read about because I'm like, I don't even believe this person. I'm not interested in their story. I don't care. I'm reading it because it's silly and it's funny and you like to write silly Disney puns and they make me laugh. I feel like when you take those dynamics and you put them into a queer story, it's just so much more interesting. There's so much more to look at. There's so many more layers because now you're removing all those inherent power dynamics that exist in how, as a society, we approach straight relationships.
I think that's a very good point. And it's also like tying into this broader question of representation, where it's like you have so many people who read Twilight, who were queer, who maybe wanted a queer story, or who were influenced or inspired by Twilight to write their own versions of it, but in a queer setting for their own kind of representation. Whether it's, I mean, you hear so many things from I'm not an expert on fan fiction, so I don't know how people feel when they are writing fan fiction, but I know from published writers, having read their interviews or listened to it, that a lot portion of how they or why they write is to get a better understanding of their own perspectives and their world, and to write these things out, or writers that I admire anyway say that. And I would probably bet it's the same thing for anyone writing fan fiction, right? Like, not only is it a really interesting critical lens that you can apply to the initial series, like, okay, how are you writing? Why are you writing this way? Why was the instinct to write that way? And what does that say about the original show? But it's also a really cool way to be like, well, I'm also imagining an ideal romance for myself. So what does that play in? Like, obviously that changes depending on your age and your own relationships and everything, but writing out a fan fiction romance in like Twilight or Flag Means Death, where it's like yourself or someone else and you're holding this to like an ideal, what does that look like and why? And I think the question of them being queer, it's interesting because it's like just still such a lack. I mean, obviously it's gotten better and hopefully it will get better and continue to get better, but there is still such a lack of those shows. And so maybe that is also another reason people are doing that, for their own kind of like, well, what would it look like for me?
100%. If they're not going to give us stories, and they're trying not to at every single moment, we will make our own goddamn stories, because you're not going to stop it, and you're not going to hold it back. Yeah. We're here, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And I think that's another really interesting thing about Twilight. You know, the three of us, we are three queer people. We've all read it. We've all seen the movies. You know, I think a lot of queer people have delved into that world. Maybe they don't like it anymore or never did, but it's interesting. It's one of those things that finds you. They couldn't possibly have known, but, you know, casting Kristen Stewart in that role, well, listen, I'm going to watch it for her no matter what. So thank you so much. But with that, we've talked a lot about my second favorite thing in the world, Twilight. Thank you so much, Belle and Leo, for joining me on this very stupid journey we went on. Take-home message, don't adhere to Mormon values. They're no good. But do enjoy things you enjoy if you want. That's okay. But we're going to get into Fic Recs.
Okay, so Wyndham picked two things. Obviously, Our Flag Means Death. Two of them. So the first one's A Heart for Home. That one is an Omegaverse. It is by Unopposable Thumbs. And it's got some of those themes that we talked about. So it's Omegaverse. It's got all the lovely things that we love about Omegaverse. Very similar to Twilight, but done much, much better. And then the other one I just found, just for you, is Wolf Like Me. So it is, of course, a werewolf fiction that's Gentlebeard. So it's Wolf Like Me by B. Bonnet 29. It's really lovely. Steed turns Ed into a werewolf, but then leaves for 20 years. So you have the pining bit. And it's just an absolutely lovely, beautiful werewolf fiction. And yes, this is a steady hand, Dizzy, Heart for Home. So
okay, and for Leo, who's a little unaware, can you explain what Steady Hands and Stizzy is real quick?
Yes,
so
please.
Stizzy is a Steed Izzy pairing. Steady Hands is a Steed Ed Izzy couple, and then Gentlebeard is Ed and Steed.
Which is what I engage with, because I'm afraid of steady hands.
I'll be a steady hand.
Yeah, you're more steady hands for sure.
I want all three of them to
exactly. Thank you. Welcome, steady hands.
It is a great place to be. I'm just a delicate flower, and that's my fault. But I found, and I would love to, I should have reached out to this author before the podcast, but I didn't because I'm an idiot. But I Will Paint a Song for Lou wrote the only existing Twilight R-Flag crossover fanfiction. It exists, and this person wrote it, and I love them for it.
Who's in it?
So it's Ed and Steed as like Edward and Bella.
Yes.
It's really good. So I've only read, so I think it's like 18 chapters and it might be unfinished. And I don't think they've updated since 2023. So I'm a little scared to keep going because I'm like, what if it gets to like a cliffhanger and never finishes? I'm going to start harassing them and stalking them. Like, excuse me, I need you to finish the story.
I just finished one of those and I'm like ready to go find this person and like hold them down until they finish the goddamn story.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm on chapter like 5 of 18 right now. So, you know, there's more to go. But so it has Ed and Steed as the age they are. So they work together. So Steed moves to a town, I think it's in Washington, called Seaside. So not Forks, but same idea. Because he's fleeing his divorce. It's more of a modern telling. Fleeing his divorce. And, you know, his wife has already remarried to Doug. And so he's like, there's no place for me here. So he moves to Seaside to work at an accounting firm where, you know, some of the folks work there from the crew. And then he meets Ed, and it's really good. Ed's at the desk across from him, and he does the whole thing. Like, remember in Twilight when like Bella walks into the science lab the first time, and Edward's like covering his mouth, like, oh my god.
Yes.
So like Ed does that, and Steed walks into their shared desk. I was dying. I was like, I love this so much. This person wrote this for me without knowing me 2 years ago.
Love. I haven't read too much fan fiction, but that is, I think, my favorite kind, where it's like literally the plot of one book, but with other characters.
Yes.
I think that's so good. I'm like, it's always so funny. I love it.
So where I've gotten to so far, so Edward is not, or Ed, not to confuse ourselves, Ed is not a vampire in this story, but he is supernatural. And what the author has been hinting at, and again, I haven't gotten so finished yet, is that he can turn into the Kraken.
Yes. So of course, okay. So I totally had to click on it because I want to see what it is, and it's explicit, so it's totally going on my to be read later.
It's already gotten like some sexy thoughts from Steed, and I'm still pretty early in.
But my favorite tag on this is Twilight, but with way less angst and way more banging it out.
Yeah.
You've got me. I'm in.
For me. And I haven't quite gotten to like what actually happens, but like, you know, the scene where Edward saves Bella from the car in the parking lot. So that happens in the parking lot of their accounting firm. But instead of like, you know, a strong vampire, Steve describes it as like these like weird dark arms come around him and then he can't see anything. And I was like, so did he ink? So yeah, it's a work of art. I Will Paint a Song for Lou. You are a hero. You are a genius. You are everything to me. And if I get to the end and it's not done, I will hunt you down. So just know that.
Well, I have something to recommend, but I don't.
That's okay. If you come across any of it, add to the show notes later. The fanfic is called 12 Degrees, and everyone should read it. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's everything my heart could ever desire. And that's Twilight, baby. We did it.
Yeah.
So if you got through this unhinged episode and think that you want to be on the podcast, you want to submit a podfic, you want to suggest topics, please reach out to us through our Gmail, which is ourflagmeansfanfiction@gmail.com, or on Instagram or on Blue Sky. Our fearless leader, Carly, is active on all those things, very responsive and very collaborative. So if you want to get involved, we want you to be involved. Please come join us, talk about dumb shit. We love it. So we hope you enjoyed this. Please go on with your life to do creations, be cringe, and commit crime. Yay!
Yay!